Borah's gotten messages from people, followers, saying that, I'm depressed and you've made my day, or you've made my week, or I've had suicidal thoughts and I just have to turn to your YouTube channel and just watch your videos, or TikTok.
Hello, boils and ghouls. It's your old pal, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And I want to welcome my good fiends of the Horror Heals podcast. Is horror good for mental wellness? But of course it is. I delight in the delicious deaths of pitiful people on the silver screen. So get ready for a hell of a good time with my new fiends, Corey and Kendall, on the Horror Heals podcast.
Welcome back to Horror Heals, the podcast where we explore how horror and all things spooky help us heal, grow, and find our people. I'm one of your hosts, Corey, along with my partner, Kendall, and today, you are in for a real treat. We're joined by the one and only Borah. Yes, the Borah of Salem, Massachusetts fame, con darling, wedding officiant, cauldron-wielding, witchy wonder. We first crossed paths at the Silver Scream Con, where I was instantly drawn to Borah's magnetic, mischievous energy, and now you'll get to experience it too. Get ready for a conversation about witches, weddings, ghosts, abandoned places, and how creating a little horror magic can change lives, including Borah's own. Let's stir the cauldron and dive right in.
Hi, Wells, how are you?
Lovely. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
We met at Silver Scream.
Yes.
Silver
Yes,
Scream.
we met at Silver Scream, which, what a fun convention. That was my first time at that one.
I'm excited about it. We're going to do the Halloween, I'm scheduled to judge the Halloween costume contest again and just to have fun. So, yeah.
It's a special kind of feeling to be at one of those cons for sure.
It really is. And it just brings everybody together because we have something all in common. The normal, quote unquote, world frowns upon you or thinks you're a little off or whatever. It's cons like this, Halloween in Salem, that brings us together, that really makes us feel like we are not abnormal.
Right.
And we share a common goal and common interests, and it makes everybody feel special and welcome.
We need a little bit of Borah in our lives,
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah. So that said, can we just kind of go into the origin story a little bit?
We can do whatever you want to do.
Okay.
And I have all the time in the world. We are doing some work on one of the rooms here, so someone's going to come and work. So if they get loud, I'll go down to the basement.
Gotcha.
And join my ghost.
Okay, excellent.
I was speaking to a lady that was a reader in my basement, and she stopped all of a sudden. She looked over my shoulder and she said, "Don't be alarmed. There's a ghost in like a mid-century. He has a hat. He's friendly." And I'm like, and the funny thing is our basement's L-shaped, or actually almost like a horseshoe shaped almost. And it was in the corner that I always felt kind of weird in, or like it felt deep. And
okay.
and that's, and I'm
interesting.
Pretty good. And she was on the West Coast. We were talking about witch brooms.
Right.
All right. So where did Borah come from? What was the beginning of Borah?
So I love witches. I've always loved witches. I always loved Bugs Bunny, Witch Hazel, the Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz. I've always loved those witches. I was always drawn to those green, wonderful witches. Borah came from actually an accident. So I'm going to make a long story very short. There was a German witch dance that's really popular, Hexenbrut, and that's only a short version of the full-length long name. I saw them on YouTube, and they were doing this wonderful, wonderful German dance, and it just became viral around 2016, I believe it was. So my husband and I moved here to Salem, and I put on Facebook, "Hey, let's do this witch dance," because I heard that Salem had a Halloween parade. I didn't know it was a whole festival of a month long. I moved to Salem because I love the history of Salem, and I love New England because it's full of ghosts, and I just love that. So that's why we moved to Salem. And like I said, I didn't know there was a whole month-long festival. I just thought it was a parade. So I got 18 strangers together and we dressed as witches. How Borah came about is how the other witches came about. I said, we have to come up with a name for a witch, how they smell, how they walk, how they eat, their energy. And we did the witch dance, and somebody said, oh, you can stand on the street in Salem and make a couple of dollars and people will take pictures with you. And so that's how Borah came about. I came up with how sometimes I say she, sometimes I say they, because to me, Borah is ever changing and it just doesn't matter. It's just whatever Borah is to someone, they can call Borah he, she, or they, or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. And just my mood, I call Borah she or they, whatever I'm in the mood for. But that's how Borah came about. And the personality fell into place and the makeup fell into place because I took sketches to a makeup artist here in Salem, Rob, who owns Magic Parlor on Essex Street, which he just expanded and moved in next door. So that's basically how Borah came about.
So, yeah, I was immediately drawn to Borah at the convention. Like, there's just something magnetic about them. And yeah, I'm sure you've heard that before. Like, it's just, there's something about Borah that people, I think, just want to like approach. And Borah is very approachable.
I had some nice compliments. Yes, thank you from people. And Borah can be, but people still want to come up to Borah.
Yes.
I'll look at somebody, or Borah will look at somebody across the room and just glare, just start making comments and start ragging on, but they'll just come running up. Oh my God. And they just open themselves up and we just have a really good time.
Yes. Can you talk a little bit about the cauldron that you have with
the cauldron that I have two.
Okay.
You saw the one that I was wheeling around. That's the
Yes.
larger of the two. That one was built in Florida. There's a guy named John, FX Studios, I believe, is the name of his company outside of his home. He and his husband build props like this. They build stuff for zoos, for Halloween props for zoos, and props for people that purchase decorations for their yards. So I met him through Spooky Empire, which is another con that I go to. And someone had a cauldron like that. I reached out to him and asked him if he could build me a cauldron like that. And then a smaller one to go on the back of my car that I drive in the parade. I have a little mini, it's like a Shriner's car, and it sits on the back. So both of these cauldrons have a space where I can put in a smoke machine so they smoke. And the larger one that you guys saw has a place that I can hang a little tiny bag for people to drop the tips in during October. And it's built around a three-wheeled old, I'm trying to think of the right, like a wheel, somewhat, I can't think of the name of it. I don't want to offend anybody, but it's like what I'm going to be holding on to and walking around when I'm in a nursing home.
Okay.
Thank you. Jeez,
Okay.
I was a little walker with wheels.
That's cool. Now, do your neighbors know that this is where Borah lives?
Oh, absolutely. My neighbors love it. Everybody in Salem knows where Borah lives, and they just embrace it. Absolutely embrace it. My dog, my familiar, Cooper, got loose one day, and I was chasing him through the neighborhood, and I had to come back and go to a wedding, and it was in October, and it was raining. We had just changed the venue, and my husband was like, go do the wedding. I'll catch up with you. I'll find Cooper. So I was leaving for the wedding, and something told me to turn down this road about 4 or 5 blocks down, and I was dressed as Borah during this time. And so one of the neighbors who I don't know that lives on this road said, I've got Cooper. He's in the house. So everybody knows Borah, and everybody knows.
When did you decide that it would be a good idea for Borah to officiate weddings?
2017, somebody said, do you officiate weddings? I said, You officiate weddings. And then when we finished talking, I'm like, no, I don't officiate weddings. What am I going to do? So I just started looking online and looking at conventional weddings. And I'm like, these are not conventional weddings. And so then I sent out a questionnaire and I'm like, tell me something about yourself. And so they told me about their pets, their family, their husbands, their loved ones, their hobbies, what they like about Halloween, their dislikes about their spouse. And then I just started brainstorming and writing and then formulating and then there are some legal terms that I have to use in the ceremonies. So after writing and rewriting, I came up with this ceremony for this couple. And so it's just taken off from there. And they are a lot of fun.
Are there straight couples that are brave enough to have Borah do the ceremony?
Most of my people are straight.
Oh, okay.
I've had literally 4 people that are gay couples that I've officiated weddings for. The rest are straight. And
Fun.
and I also do wedding vow renewals, baby gender reveals, and divorce parties.
What's a Borah divorce party like?
Oh, we come with arsenic. It would go out. We just laugh, we celebrate, I tell jokes, they drink, they rip up their wedding pictures. Sometimes we'll burn them, just whatever they want to do. It's their idea. I show up and just hopefully bring life to the party and tell jokes and make sure everybody is drinking and eating and having a lot of fun.
Have you thought about taking the baby gender reveal to the next step and maybe Borah could become a doula?
Oh, God.
What?
A doula? Be able to be there when the baby's born?
What is that now?
It's kind of like a midwife.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't do that because my makeup would come off my hands.
Yeah.
And all that splatter.
Yeah, that might be a little
wrong.
That sounds like a true horror movie to me.
There are limits of what Borah can do.
Now, were you into witches as a kid?
Only cartoons, only movies. Yeah, but Halloween was big in my family. We would decorate the yard, make a haunt out of the yard. We would always have a witch. We would turn our dad's shed into a haunted house. So I've always been into Halloween. Witches, yes, but not to this extreme.
Right. Okay.
It was only Salem that it turned into this.
Gotcha. Was there an aha moment that it's like, okay, we got to go to Salem. We're packing up and going to Salem.
Oh, that's a good question. The Crucible by Arthur Miller. It's about the Salem witch trials. So I read that play and I thought it was fascinating. So I went to the library. You guys are too young. You don't know what libraries are, do you?
Oh, yes, we do.
I have a library card.
Yeah.
Do you?
No, we really do.
Yeah.
Well, I went to the library and I read up on the witch trials. I told my mom and dad I want to go to Salem. They made me get a job during the summer. I saved up my money and they helped me find a plane ticket and a hotel. And I came to Salem on the train from Boston. And as soon as I stepped off the train onto the ground at a high school age, I think I was in the 11th grade, I said, I am home. And
Wow.
it just felt, it felt right. It felt comfortable. And it was before they built the current station that they have now. At that time, it was just a cement slab. I don't even know if it was a cement slab, but it was a 4-legged shed open with a back wall, like a back to help with wind. It was just, it was nothing but a bench. And it was like down in that pit almost. And you had to walk upstairs to get out of it.
I've seen some photos of that.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine Salem has changed a lot since then. What was it like on that first visit?
I was in such awe. Like a kid at Christmas time, I tried to do everything that I could. I didn't make it out to the old Salem jail. And I heard during that time it was abandoned and had a fence around it. I did see the Salem Witch Museum and a couple other attractions. And I was so focused on those that I didn't really get out and walk around to see. So I can't tell you if it had changed a whole lot or not. It looks the same to me. I remember eating at Red's, and that hasn't changed. At Red's Sandwich Shop, 15 Central Street. To me, it looks the same. But had I known that the jail was abandoned, because I love going to abandoned places, I would have gone over there and tried to have gotten into that building.
We actually did our photo shoot for this podcast at an abandoned prison / mental institution.
Really?
If you see any images on our website or early posts on social media, the photographer was really game for doing all those things.
We met her at a horror convention in Nashua.
Yep.
And just were immediately drawn to her imagery and stuff. And so was totally down for whatever weird stuff we wanted to do.
So, abandoned places are so much fun. And what I don't understand I don't understand their thinking of others that don't get it, that aren't excited about abandoned places.
Yeah.
I don't get it. My husband and I went to, he doesn't like abandoned places. He says, I'll wait in the car and I'll call the cops. Or I'll text you he said, I'll text you that the cops come. That's what I meant to say. Or I'll bail you out of jail is what he says. Have you ever been to the Poconos in Pennsylvania?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, they have a ski resort out there called Camelback, and near Camelback is it's called Penn Hills Resort, which was started, I think, in the 50s, and it grew to this huge resort, and they had like horseback riding, snow skiing slopes, and ice skating, and they had everything. You didn't need to leave this hotel resort. It closed in the early 2000s or late 90s because they owed so much money, and it just went downhill. We were there, and I went exploring, and Greg stayed in the car, and I was there an hour and a half. Bless his heart. It was cold. I got into one area, and there was paperwork everywhere, like an office area. It had a beautiful stone fire that was like the whole wall, like the old 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s. This is an office area, and I'm looking at how much money they brought in at this bar because they had several bars there. Finally, I was done. It was getting dark, and it came up. He says, dude, I was getting ready to text you because X number of years ago, there was a guy that murdered, and he was hiding out in this office area up Penn Hill State for several weeks or so. And he said, you never know who's going to be hiding out in these places. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I got this chill.
Right?
Yeah. So as we left, we turned the corner, and on the property was this house that was shaped like a rectangular shaped house. And I looked down, and in the center of it were all these trees. It was like an atrium. So it looked like an old 60s house. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to go in there. Next time we come back, I said, Greg, I got to go here. Since then, they've torn the whole property down.
Oh,
so I missed that opportunity. I love that style, that 60s, 70s, mid-century modern.
Yep.
Style.
Quick story. I learned the hard way that you shouldn't take anything from an abandoned place. Back in high school, we stumbled upon this abandoned old house out in the woods. It looked like a place where kids would party and stuff, but there was one room that was really cold. I took this photo of a creepy child, like old paper photo looking maybe from like the 40s or 50s. And it was in my car. At the time, I was working kind of in a secluded area, and it rained really, really hard while I was there. On the drive back, I didn't realize how much it had rained, but it had flooded. And so all of a sudden, my car was like up to like the hood was like covered in water. And the engine eventually died, and I was able to find. I just thought this was it. I'm done. Like the water was coming into the car. It was like up to my knees in the car. Finally, I was able to get the car started. Got it home. Opened the doors. It was like almost like something out of a movie where like fish are flopping in the back kind of thing. But all this water comes pouring out, and I pick up that photo, and it's bone dry.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh wow. Oh.
Now, I knew the story about the car flooding. I didn't know about this photo.
Yeah. Well, you had to wait for the podcast,
Well, there's some things you just don't tell people.
And I don't know what happened in that photo, but
are you serious?
Oh,
it's not with us any longer.
I don't know. You may have thrown it away. I would have probably thrown it away.
I think I did after that.
Or returned it to the house.
That would have been a better idea.
Yeah.
Now, have you encountered anyone who has dressed up as Borah?
Yeah, somebody did in Germany.
Oh,
No.
It wasn't related to the German witch dance, but there was a follower that said, "I'm going to dress up like you." Actually, a couple of people did, and they did dress up as Borah, and they did a great job. A different nose and chin, because people ask, "Where do I get the nose and chin from?" And I wouldn't tell them because, just they had the freedom to search for it. But I don't want to give away every secret.
No.
no.
2 years ago, the manufacturer stopped making the nose and chin.
Oh,
I had bought like 15 of them, and I can go through a nose and a chin like 3 in a year.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, well, this limits my, I'm going to have to do something here. So I
Yeah,
did
right.
find, I have one set left.
Oh.
I had some that were used. And so I found a makeup artist in Canada who has now made a nose and chin. So I have an endless supply now.
You just approach it and say that Borah had a, cosmetic, surgery.
I was concerned about not having the nose and chin, and I searched we both searched everywhere, all over, the internet,
yes.
and they were not anywhere to be found. So now we're set.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, when I encountered Borah, Borah was a little snippy with me, a little sassy, which was great. I loved it. I eat it up, And I mentioned to Borah that, the podcast and our theory that horror and horror culture is really good for our mental wellness. And Borah agreed. Can you comment a little bit more deeply on that?
About our mental, yeah, I think it's, well, to me, I love cheesy horror movies, and they make me laugh, and it helps me relate to people in that creative community, and makes me feel that I have that I can relate to people, that I'm not the only odd person out here, and we get so lonely in our lives, and we lose contact with people. And like I said earlier, if you're not like the quote unquote norm, then you are strange and you're different. So when I look at these horror movies or go to these horror cons, it's a whole world that we can relate to. And so it helps all of us mentally to know that we are okay.
Yes.
We are okay, and we're different. We have a whole community that we can lean on and rely on, and we're fine.
Yes, I agree. Well, it's very inspirational to hear your story, because it takes a lot for people to know what they want to do, where they want to be, and knowing that since you were in high school, Salem was where you were destined to be. We up and moved from St. Louis to the San Francisco Bay Area, like basically on a whim. We visited with friends there and just decided, if we can make this happen, let's move there. And what was it, like within 6 weeks you were there?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was working for Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and a woman that I worked with in St. Louis had moved to California, and I just happened to look at an opening in San Francisco, and sure enough, the woman I'd be reporting to is this woman that I knew. So I still had to go through 100 interviews and fly out and all that. I was like, oh, this is going to be a possibility. And yeah, Corey's right. And I kind of landed with 2 suitcases and said, I guess I live here now. And honey, can you just make sure all the stuff from the condo and you come on out?
That was a bit of a college roommate, and his family lived in the Castro. And he had his office with his business partner. There was a loft, with a kitchenette and a restroom. So that's where Kendall stayed for like the first couple of months, right?
Yeah, until I found
we found an apartment. Yeah, and then in the meantime, I was busy packing and getting ready and all that. And then
it was nuts.
Then 9 years later, we find Kendall's birth family living here in New England.
Really?
And visited it in October of 2017. And then on the plane ride back home, I was like, well, I guess we're moving to New England.
Oh,
and we were here in January. So we made it happen again very quickly.
Yeah, so the weather did not scare you in January.
Oh, it did. It did.
Yes. I mean, we had pretty much forgotten that winter existed, because living in California for so long.
9 years.
I grew up in St. Louis, so I was definitely used to some winter stuff, but we've been reminded this winter, as opposed to the last couple, that like, oh yeah, it really does get winter here. Weird.
I love it though. I love the winter. But packing up by yourself. It was okay because it was stressful for you, I'm sure, but you are going to a place that you want an exciting
Yeah.
place, a new place.
Yep.
And so that probably helped with your stress there.
My story's crazy, but
Now,
finding the
did you not know this, your family here?
Oh, I was adopted by my parents when I was 2 months old, and it was a private adoption, and I knew nothing except my birth name and, where I was born. And my brother, Chris, whose birthday is today, his wife got him his DNA kit for his birthday in 2017. And Corey got me my DNA kit for my birthday in 2017. And we immediately matched and suddenly found out that my parents were 15 and 16 when I was born. And that's the reason I was given up. But they
That's the
both
tough age to raise a kid.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
I mean-
And both of my parents went on to have 3 other kids with other people. So after feeling like an only child for 47 years, I suddenly had 6 half siblings, 13 nieces and nephews over, and it was crazy.
Yes. And his brother Chris had known about Kendall since he was a teenager. So he had been looking for him for, decades,
So
but
he knew
with nothing to go on.
So he knew he had a brother, but he didn't know, oh, his name is Kendall and he lives in California.
No,
He just know, I
no.
have a brother. So
Yeah.
you guys have embraced each other and you celebrate holidays.
Yep.
Amazing.
We moved here specifically because my dad and 2 of his other 3 kids live in New England. So
Yeah.
it was the spot where we could get the most people together. So it's been wonderful. We saw my brother last weekend.
2 weekends. Yeah. We ended up joining this New England podcasters group, and they meet in the same town where his brother lives, like half a mile away.
In Westford.
So we go over there once a month, and then we go and hang out with them after. It's just super convenient.
And now, do they like Halloween like you guys? Or
I mean, they're not opposed to it. They're not as into it as we are. But it's funny that when that first weekend that we met them, there was, before Silver Scream, there was the Rock and Shock convention in Worcester. And it was that weekend. And so we took them to Rock and Shock, and they got their first taste of a horror convention that weekend.
Like 24 hours after we met them. It was a lot of fun.
So we've kind of push them into the pool of horror because they know we're absolutely obsessed with horror and Halloween and everything.
It's funny how people who don't know the horror lifestyle or the conventions, when they are introduced to it, they go like, holy cow, it's this huge?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's amazing.
It's getting bigger every year. Horror is getting more and more into the mainstream, and I think more and more respected, as we can see, with the Oscars coming up. There's several horror themed movies that are nominated. So it's exciting for us because really, there are so many people out there that I think, they're suffering with anxiety and depression and things like that. And horror is their solace. And I think sometimes they're scared to tell people that because they're going to think they're weird, but it's not. I mean, it's whatever, as long as you're not hurting somebody, whatever makes you feel better, whatever calms you down, whatever makes you smile, that's okay. As long as it's not for real and it's on a screen,
So how did you guys come up with a podcast that touches and connects or how you know what I'm asking? I don't even know if I'm asking.
Yes. And I love telling
How's
these
it
stories. So we've been doing the Family Twist podcast that we started about found families and DNA and all that stuff almost 3 years ago. Kendall started pestering me last year, we should really do a second podcast about how much we love horror and Halloween and stuff. And it's but it's there's a ton of them already. And what's our thing? We've been told, I'm a marketer. So, we knew that we had a very specific niche for the other podcast. I'm we got to have something that's uniquely ours. So I was at a horror convention last March in New Jersey and standing in line to meet Sam Raimi, the creator of the Evil Dead franchise. And there was a young man next to me who was clearly very anxious. He's kind of pacing back and forth and kind of muttering to himself. And he was holding a stack of DVDs. And I was, hey, you can step out of line if it's, if being in line and being this close to people is stressing you out. But before I could do that, the person next to him, noticed the DVDs and he's like, oh, I love that movie. And all of a sudden, all the anxiety just washed away immediately. And they started talking as if they'd been friends for life. And that continued, all the way through the rest of the line. And so I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty amazing. And then I went up and had my couple minutes with Sam Raimi. And as soon as I got out of line, I was like, oh, this is it. The horror is healing for people. I
Yeah.
immediately called Kendall
Mhm.
and told him about it. He was immediately on board. And that was it. And so from there, we decided, we started talking about names and branding and all that stuff. And then, of course, we both landed on the idea we got to launch it on Friday the 13th, which is what we did. It's not even been 6 months yet, but the feedback that we've gotten from people has been amazing. The people we've met, you included, it's just like we're making new friends every time we turn on the camera. It's really been something.
That's really, congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
good. Yeah.
Thank you.
That-
The other podcast is much more known, but it's been out there for a while. We're hoping that we can continue to reach people this way.
Absolutely. I was asked to be on a panel at a new convention back in my hometown in April. So that'll be the first kind of unveiling of the Horror Heals podcast at a convention. We want to start vending, not selling stuff, but just having a table at conventions so we can continue spreading the word and letting people know that we exist.
And interview people.
Yes,
they loved it.
Yeah.
I was at Spooky Empire one time, and there was a security guard there, and he was inside the celebrity room and standing there all regal and just looking around. And we just started talking, and he just had a shroud of nervousness and seriousness. He says, I got something to tell you. And I'm like, what? He says, I really dig this. And we got whispering to me like it was
He wasn't allowed.
Like first time revealing a secret. He's like, I like all this Halloween stuff and these costumes is really cool. I kind of feel like I'm at home here. And I'm like, well, that's good. That's good to hear. Yeah. And he's been doing that ever since then. And he's a different person now. That was kind of like healing. Help him connect to something he loves that he probably didn't realize existed to that extent until he had that job.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, until they experience something like that, they don't realize that that's what they needed until they actually experience it. And then it's like, that's their thing.
I see kids every year that come, families that bring their kids, and they just grow up every year. And we take photos and I see them grow up and how they've changed. And I remember them. I remember faces and actions. And I don't remember names, and I don't remember where people came from. I mean, I remember where people came from, but there's certain things I remember. So I will see a kid and I'm like, I remember when you were 3 years old. I remember when you were 4, and people were like, Mary will be pregnant in 2024, 2025. She's had the newborn. She brings the newborn and shows Borah, and you can see her delight because she's showing Borah, here's my kid. And I was with you when I was pregnant last year.
Right.
I've been told, I've gotten messages from people saying that my mother, there was this one lady that would sit in her wheelchair and just watch across the street and watch Borah's interaction with other people. And the messages are, my mom or my dad loves watching you. They'll stand there for an hour and just watch you, and you just make them happy. You bring my mom and dad smiles. Borah's gotten messages from people, followers, saying that, I'm depressed and you've made my day, or you've made my week, or I've had suicidal thoughts and I just have to turn to your YouTube channel and just watch your videos, or TikTok. I've had a grandmother message me one time, her 2 grandkids. One was tall and beautiful. She got picked on because people were jealous. The other grandkid, her sister, had a speech impediment, so she didn't really talk a whole lot. So she asked Borah to make a video to help them feel better. So I did. So yeah, this does touch people's lives, and it does change people's lives.
Absolutely. It's beautiful what you do. And I knew immediately, when I saw you and Borah, that this was going to be a perfect fit for the podcast.
I appreciate it.
So, Brian, the last question that we always ask every guest. We're going to have you back on for sure.
Deal.
All right. So, who is your favorite final person in a horror movie?
My final. Okay, so you mean like someone who gets killed, or
somebody who makes it through to the very end, survivor?
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
I love Halloween. I love Michael Myers. I just love that movie. I love her,
Yeah.
and that's her life as an
Yes. Absolutely.
and you have to love her because she's so open and she loves our community,
Yes.
big community, and she's just a fun person that has good energy off camera.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
can't wait for her to start going to cons.
I know.
I know. I think she's done one or two. It's like she would probably cause a stampede.
A
Um,
stampede. It'll
oh
be
yeah,
wild.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've said this several times, but I'm going to put it back out in the universe that she is my ultimate dream guest for this podcast. So, if you could have Borah put that out into the universe, having Jamie
will
Lee
put
Curtis
it out.
on, because I know it
I'll-
would be just hysterical and poignant and all that good stuff.
Who are your other favorite celebrities? The horror celebrities, male, female?
Would
you-
also like
yeah.
number two for me to have on here would have to be Stephen King, like, and again another ally, and just love how outspoken he is, and of course just how prolific and just like the amount of amazing characters he's created over the decades is just it's unbelievable.
And he's in Maine.
And he's not far.
Wow. How about Elvira?
Yes, of course, I love Elvira.
Did you read her book?
Yes, yes.
Cool.
I
Lord.
haven't.
Oh,
Yes.
you have to. I met her twice. If she's not busy, which she always is, I was going to ask her about a couple of things in her book that just were like, wow, this is fascinating. I can't believe this. But you need to read her book.
I will.
It's you should.
Yeah.
That should be on your next.
Do we have it?
Corey,
Yes.
I mean, Kendall,
Oh,
you
Yes.
need-
Do we have it?
I think we've got it on Audible.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
There we go.
Let's do it.
I don't like reading books and I get bored and I start thinking about other things when I'm reading, but it did hold my attention.
Cool.
And I read the whole thing from cover to cover. And like I said, I highlighted certain
Sure.
points.
I just finished a book, so I'll start that.
Yeah, she's definitely had a fascinating career. You know, it's just, and again, people just adore her, and you know, she's great. I know she's retired the character now, but they still just want to come out and meet her as Cassandra. You know,
I saw her one time, I think one of the last times that she dressed as Elvira. And I was very thankful for her. Once she was here in Salem and I was waiting in line at the hotel and there she was in the room and she asked her, she said, I got to do my makeup. So she pulled up the mirror and she was like touching up her lipstick. And now I'm like, holy cow. I didn't want to be intrusive and take a picture or sneak a picture. I respected her time, her doing that. And I'm like, let her do her thing. And then she said, okay, come on. And the line continued and we were standing there. I sat down with her and she had like 4 or 5 people in front of her, a camera guy, her manager and whatever else. And she was admiring my shoe, Borah's shoes. And I'm like, girl, I love your shoes too. I said, let's pick up our dresses and hike up our legs. So I was hiking up my leg like that. And, you know, it was pretty close to the thigh. And she, I can do this in front of those guys. They'll see my hoochie cooch. They don't care about your hoochie cooch. They are gay as a $2 bill. They ain't looking at that. So come on. So we both picked up our legs and showed off our shoes for the camera. And she was so nice. She ended up on her Facebook page.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was several years ago. But
That's
I really
so cool.
liked her. I really liked her.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's something that we find pretty much across the board. Like the horror celebrities, 99.9% of them are just like us, and they sometimes have the same anxieties and fears, and they're just so open and appreciative. It's not like they're meeting their fans, it's like they're meeting their friends. You know,
Exactly. And that's exactly what it's like. And they're crazy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Oh,
We all need a little bit of that.
we do. And I didn't mean that in a good way.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, can't wait to see Borah again in person. And this has just been delightful, and I knew it would be. But we really appreciate you taking the time out to spend with us. And we love Salem. So next time we visit Salem, I'll reach out. It's a magical place, as you know.
It is. It really is. And thanks for having me. And I can't wait to see you guys again at the Silver Scream. Unless I
Yes,
see
Silver
you
Scream. Yes.
outside. Yeah.
We'll be there.
Come to Salem. We'll have coffee. We'll walk around.
I'd love
And
that.
this is October. Everybody wants to go have coffee or dinner in October, but I just can't. So outside of
No, not in. Yeah,
Yes.
not
I
in-
get it.
now, September's getting like that too.
Yeah.
It's getting busy here. I was at several conventions in September and it was busy here in October. I mean, in September in Salem, it was busy. And all the other buskers were like, we're out and it's busy. And I kept looking at pictures and I'm like, I can't make it because I'm not in town. Well, what you guys do, this is a great podcast, and
Appreciate that.
making the connections, and thanks for helping people that feel kind of shunned in society and making them feel welcome with open arms and a connection.
That's why we do it.
Okay.
Wasn't that wonderful? A huge thank you to Borah for joining us and sharing their magical journey, from Salem sidewalks to spooky weddings and everything in between. What really stuck with me is how something that starts as a simple love for witches at Halloween can grow into a source of connection, joy, and healing for so many. It's a great reminder that when we embrace who we are, even the parts that feel a little different or unusual, we often find our community and maybe even a little peace. So whether you're dancing in the streets of Salem or just watching cheesy horror movies at home, know that you're not alone. You're part of this wonderfully weird and welcoming world. Thanks for listening. And remember, when someone asks, is horror good for mental wellness? You tell them, of course it is. The Horror Heals podcast is produced and presented by How the Cow Ate the Cabbage, LLC.